Ladies and gentlemen, it's been about a month since we found out that Myles Garrett requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. And I told you guys that Myles Garrett will be the topic of conversation a lot until he is no longer a Cleveland Brown and he plays for another team. There's been a lot of talk on if Brad Holmes, especially for me, I might be the only one talking about it, how much Brad Holmes actually values the defensive line. When you trade up for a guy like Broderick Martin, a project, or a Broderick, as somebody so eloquently put it, who reached out to me. Instead of I need a project chick, I need a Broderick. That is outstanding. But Brad Holmes has neglected to properly address the defensive line. My translation might be getting lost in emotion, but the reality is he has not properly addressed the defensive line. He's put more assets via free agency and the draft into the secondary. That's just a matter of fact. You can debate me all you want, but it's a matter of fact. Go look it up and tell me what you come back with. Look at free agency, look at the draft, look at free agency and the draft and the defensive line and the secondary, and tell me what you see. Do you see the equal amounts of effort put into those as they did? I see more high value targets, whether they worked out or not, in the secondary than I see in the NFL draft. Now, you could call those misses. I call those misses as well. But I don't think that Brad Holmes really gave it his all, which is why this tweet to me is kind of suspicious. To me, Brad Holmes is the general manager that cried wolf. Talks a lot of game when it comes to what shoulda, coulda, woulda, what he tried to do, I was about to do. You know, when I was a kid, my parents told me that one thing that I would say, they would ask me, did I do something? And I was always just about to do it. I think Brad Holmes is the, quote, I'm just about to do that manager. What am I referring to? Well, according to JPA Football, and this comes from a reputable source, says that rumors the Lions were the, quote, most aggressive team that pursued pass rusher Myles Garrett at the trade deadline and are in touch with Cleveland once again about a potential trade, per Kimberly A. She is a media personality. So the Detroit Lions were the most aggressive team to pursue Myles Garrett at the trade deadline. You don't say. Now, if we go back to 2023 at the trade deadline, the Detroit Lions tried to acquire Danielle Hunter, and it was a lot to that. I didn't buy it. Then I was looking at Brad Holmes' body language after the reports came out, because the trade deadline passed first. Then months after that, the reports came out, and I was trying to decipher if that was possible. And now you have the same thing here. And I'm going to tell you why I'm not too sure that this is an actual fact. This is not cap on JPA Football or Kimberly. I did try to find the source of where this came from, the quote. Maybe it was on ESPN or the radio or something like that, but I could not find the actual quote from her. But I'm going to tell you why. To me, Brad Holmes is the general manager who cried wolf when it comes to the D-line, and he is always just about to do something. Trading for Myles Garrett would be directly different from what we know Brad Holmes to be. So you have that. You also have the fact that heading into the 2024 NFL offseason, one thing that Brad Holmes was known for was being cheap. Now you can't say that he was all around cheap. Now he's not all around cheap. He's cheap when it comes to people that he doesn't sign. Or in this case, with people he doesn't want. Like he signed Cam Sutton, $33 million deal. He is the highest priced free agent signing that Brad Holmes has made. Look how that turned out. Cam was whack before he even got into all that legal trouble. $33 million is the biggest free agent deal that Brad Holmes, it was 3 years free agent. There's a couple things we know about Brad Holmes. He loves 1 and 2 year deals. He's very thrifty. He's very productive with the money. And heading into this last offseason, he was cheap. Now you have a situation where he's not cheap with players that he signs and players that he wants. Paid Amon-Ra St. Brown, paid Taylor Decker, paid tons of people. Now you have Aiden Hutchinson, Kirby Joseph. You have those guys coming up as well. So I'm not sure if I believe this. Now, let me tell you something. This right here, if this is true, would change everything. If the Detroit Lions were the most aggressive, for Myles Garrett. Let me ask you this. What would change? What would change? Put it in the comment section below. What would change between the trade deadline and the NFL offseason? The salary cap has gone up. Why would this change? So if you were aggressive then and you were the most aggressive and we saw that the Detroit Lions a week ago called about Myles Garrett, like I'm sure 31 other teams have done, what would change between now? If you're Brad Holmes, what would change between then and now? Between November 5th and March the 3rd, what would change? Why would you not be aggressive? Why would you be less aggressive? Would you be more aggressive? So part of me believes this, part of me doesn't. I don't know how to feel about this. I want to believe it. I am at the point that I have to see it to believe it. Here's why I could believe it. Because Brad Holmes is a wild card. He's surprised me before with signing, extending for those prices. Amon-Ra St. Brown, making him the highest paid receiver at the time. Penei Sewell, highest paid. Aiden Hutchinson will get a bag. Kirby Joseph will probably get a bag as well. Aleem McNeil, bag, right? We've paid people. All his draft picks. So that told me that Brad Holmes is not necessarily cheap all around the board, where he's willing to lose players, specifically that he's drafted, based on money. So that kind of threw that out the window. But one thing that has remained the same, if you take Cam Sutton off the table, he doesn't really have monster free agent signings. We would have to trade for Myles Garrett. He also has not given up a first-round pick for a player. You understand what I'm saying? So there's a lot of unknown about Brad Holmes. If he were to do something like this, that would change everything for me. Trying or hearing that he's tried and he was aggressive, that's one thing. It really is. But making it happen is another. We've seen, and I understand it takes two to tango, but everybody has a selling point. Everybody has a breaking point. We've seen what Howie Roseman will do. We've seen what Les Snead will do. We've seen other general managers do what needs to be done. And it took two to tango on their ends as well. So if this is the case, then there's absolutely no reason that the Detroit Lions should not be just as aggressive, if not more. There's no reason that Brad Holmes should let his foot off the gas. If he makes this happen, for me, that changes everything. Still doesn't change the fact that he failed to address the D-line properly. Still doesn't change the fact that we should have never drafted Broderick Martin. But it does tell me that Brad Holmes is aware that he needs to alter his game plan if he wants to win it all. All I need to see is him do this. Everything else, in my opinion, will fall after that. True story, fact. If he was to trade for Myles Garrett, my faith in him would be restored. And when it comes to the totality of this team, see, I'm not knocking what he's done already, the good that he's done, the Brian Branches, the Jahmyr Gibbs. There's no doubt about it that Brad Holmes is him in certain aspects. In other, he is not. He is not. I'm just a guy speaking the words. But just like I know, you know this as well. Because if it was the case, then we would not sign. Why can you predict what Brad Holmes is going to do in some cases? If he's over 30, if he's cheap, and if he's anything less than elite tier, Brad Holmes is probably going to look at him. Everyone knows that. That's not what I say. That's what he does. So why can we predict that? Because that's what he does. What he doesn't do is this here. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. Brad Holmes trading for Myles Garrett, that they were the most aggressive at the trade deadline, and they continue to be aggressive now, you would assume. You got to outbid 30 other teams. It's going to be a fight. I think Myles Garrett is worth it. And I'm very, very curious to know how this is going to end for the Detroit Lions. This is a big deal. It would change everything for me. Everyone's allowed to make mistakes. Everyone's allowed to miss. It's not my issue with Brad Holmes. Real talk is only about the defensive line. It really is. It really is. That's it. We saw a need when he got here for the secondary. The whole team needed to be revamped. He gets here. Secondary is atrocious. We had Jeff Okudah back there. He comes in. He does what he needs to do. He did so much that last year I was convinced that he would part ways with his first round pick. I was convinced that he would make a move. He would sign someone in free agency, and that someone wound up being Marcus Davenport. And that was the moment that I was like, yo, what are we doing? Because I believe that had we had a pass rusher in the 2023 NFL season, we win the NFC Championship game, we go to our first Super Bowl, and we end the season like we started it with the victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. That's just what I believe. 2024 comes. It was the pass rusher free agency extravaganza, and we signed a dude coming off a 4-game season. That was concerning. Brad Holmes, everyone can grow, everyone can mature, everyone can course correct. And I've been preaching this for literally the entire offseason and before that if Brad Holmes does not course correct in certain aspects, he will not have the general manager job for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I'm sure Brad Holmes wants to retire as the general manager of the Detroit Lions. I'm sure he does. But the NFL stands for not for long. It won't take much for him not to be here. This is just the facts. You guys can be, it's funny because I get called emotional, and I am, but I be speaking with stats and facts. Some of y'all be all emotion. It doesn't matter if Brad Holmes has changed his team. I know that. I agree with you. But it's about what have you done now. That's in the past. Right? So yes, we hold, as Lions fans, we hold on to 0-16. We hold on the fact that we have never been to a Super Bowl. That's because we are in rare company. And until that stat remains or changes, it will always be something we bring up. I haven't forgotten about Matt Patricia. I haven't forgotten about Matt Millen. I haven't forgotten about Charles Rogers and those guys. I haven't forgot about that. I have not forgot about that. But the past is the present if nothing changes. If you see that something needs to be done, what did Dan Campbell say? He only believes it's failure if you don't learn from it. Otherwise, it's a learning experience. So we'll see. This changes everything. It does. If Brad Holmes pulls this off, then after that, now I'm back up. My trust will be 99.9. It really would, because now I see, you know what? He sees it. He did something about it. If you were in a situation where you needed to course correct in order to maintain or better yourself, you would probably do it as well, right? So it's obvious. It's obvious to you. It's obvious to me. It's obvious to everyone else. Is it obvious to Brad Holmes? This show, but then we'll see, because you can't be the most aggressive suitor for Myles Garrett and then re-sign Marcus Davenport. You can't do that. You just can't do that. There are other people available. Do whatever it takes to bring Josh Sweat. See, Myles Garrett is the top of the food chain. It's him, Hutch, everybody else. If you're going for the top of the food chain guy, you can. We didn't get the top of the food chain guy, so we're gonna get like the bottom tier. We're gonna get Timon and Pumbaa. Like we can't just shoot for the top of the food chain and then just settle for dirt. You understand what I'm saying? There's too much discrepancy there. But let me know what you think. Do you think there's any truth to this, or are you calling cap on this? I think that while the most aggressive suitor, I got to see it to believe it. I'll put it like that. I have to see Brad Holmes do something. And if you sign Josh Sweat, I could believe this. But if you sign Marcus Davenport, Myles Garrett, Marcus Davenport, like, what are we doing? What do we have? What are we doing here? Like, that's too big of a gap for me to be like, oh, wait, you know what? He didn't get Myles, so he went and got Marcus. He re-signed Marcus. Come on, man. Right now, I got to see it to believe it. This channel is made possible by viewers, subscribers, and members just like you. It's because of your support I get to do what I do. You could be anywhere else on YouTube, but you choose to rock with me. Listen, director members, your names have been added, but I had trouble adding your names. I was looking on my member list, and every time I would scroll down, it would scroll back up. For some reason, it would not let me scroll down. So if you are a director member, I need you to let me know if you don't see your name. Put in the comment section what month your membership is at. So put like Lions Syndicate, for example. Put your name and put the number of months you've been a member. Yes, and if you are a 6-month member who have not received a helmet, or a 12-month member, you just hit your 12-month membership, it's time for your milestone gift as well. And make sure you contact me because you don't get another one until 2 years. All right. So make sure you guys, if you did not receive your milestone gift, you are a director tier member, let me know. And if you don't see your name, put it in the comment section below because I don't know why the system is acting up. Anyway, you guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions.